Agnes and Joe had been married for many years and were blessed with a son named Ben. Joe was a devoted pastor, deeply rooted in his Christian faith. He believed that his wife Agnes shared his faith and was just as committed to living a righteous life. To everyone in their community, Agnes appeared to be the perfect Christian wife, modest, prayerful, and supportive of her husband's ministry. However, Joe had no idea that Agnes was living a double life. She was only pretending to be a godly woman in front of her husband and son, while behind their backs, she was secretly involved with other men. Every time Agnes wanted to leave the house, she dressed in a long, flowing gown and covered her head with a scarf, making sure she looked like a devoted Christian woman. She would tell Joe that she was going out for evangelism, and he, trusting her completely, would pray for her and encourage her to spread God's word. But as soon as she was out of sight, Agnes would transform. She would remove her headscarf, change into revealing, seductive outfits, and head straight to a distant hotel, far from home and her community, where no one would recognize her. At the hotel, Agnes was well known. The staff knew her as one of their regular guests. Whenever a man came looking for a woman to spend the night with, the hotel workers would connect him with Agnes. For her, it wasn't just about the money, it was the thrill of it. Even though her husband provided her with everything she needed, she was never satisfied. Despite her secret life, Agnes maintained her image as a godly woman at home. She often gave her son Ben strong advice about living a righteous life. "Ben, my son," she would say, "always follow God. Never allow anything to lead you astray. Keep yourself pure, because your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. Never defile yourself before marriage. Women can be a great distraction in life, so be careful. Stay focused on your dreams, and never let anything take you away from God's path." Ben admired his mother greatly. He believed she was a true woman of God. "Thank you, Mum," he would reply with a smile. "Whenever I'm with you, I feel like I'm already in heaven. You are the mouthpiece of God. Dad is so lucky to have you as his wife. You are the best mother in the world." Agnes would smile sweetly at her son, patting his back lovingly, while deep inside, she knew she was living a lie. She even told Ben a secret. "Son, don't ever ask your father about this, but I was a virgin when I married him. We practiced holy intimacy. As the son of a pastor, some things are not meant to be discussed openly. Just know that purity is important, and I hope you are still a virgin. Remember, you can only share that part of yourself with your wife after marriage." Ben was so proud of his mother. He looked up to her as the perfect example of a godly woman. He had no idea that while she preached holiness to him, she was secretly engaging in the very sins she warned him about. Agnes was living a dangerous lie. She thought she was in control. But how long could she keep up this act before the truth finally came out? A great opportunity had come for Ben, Joe, and Agnes's only son. He had been granted the chance to travel to the United States in search of greener pastures. It was a dream come true for their family. Joe was overjoyed, praising God for his blessings, while Agnes was filled with excitement and pride. Before Ben left, his mother called him into her room for a heart-to-heart conversation. She held his hands gently and looked into his eyes with love and concern. "My son," she began, "this is a big opportunity, and I want you to make the most of it. Always remember where you come from and never forget your family background. Out there in America, life is different, but you must remain true to yourself. Stay close to God, live a holy life, and flee from women. They will only distract you. Focus on your goals, and I promise you will succeed." She paused for a moment and continued, "I will always be praying for you, my dear son. God will guide you, protect you, and keep you safe from all evil." Ben was touched by his mother's words. He smiled and hugged her tightly. "Thank you, Mum. I will never forget your advice. I love you so much." The family gathered together, and Joe led a powerful prayer, asking for God's guidance and protection over Ben's journey. The next day, Ben left for the United States, filled with excitement and determination to make his family proud. One Sunday, as usual, Pastor Joe stood before his congregation, preaching with great passion. That day, his sermon was about immorality. "The world today is full of sin," he declared. "Women, especially married ones, are swimming in the ocean of immorality. Do you not know that your body is the temple of God? You must keep your body holy and pray always." The church members listened attentively, nodding in agreement as he spoke. "For you married women," he continued, "it is an abomination to sleep with men behind your husband's back. It leads directly to hellfire. Can't you follow the footsteps of my precious and beloved wife, Agnes? She has been running her heavenly race without compromise." The moment Joe mentioned Agnes's name, a loud gasp echoed through the church. The congregation murmured in disbelief. "What?" someone whispered. "Did he just say Agnes?" Another voice questioned. "Unbelievable," a woman muttered, shaking her head. Joe was confused. He could see the shock on their faces. He had expected them to be inspired by his wife's example, but instead their reaction was strange. Unbeknownst to Joe, rumors had been spreading within the church about Agnes. Some members had heard whispers about her secret affairs, but since there was no evidence, no one dared to speak out. They all kept quiet, watching and waiting for the truth to reveal itself. After the service, Joe couldn't shake off the uneasy feeling. Something was wrong. He decided to call some of his trusted church members into his office. "My brothers and sisters," he said, looking at them seriously, "what was the meaning of what happened in church today? When I mentioned my wife's name, I noticed a strange reaction from all of you. What is going on?" The members glanced at each other nervously. No one wanted to be the one to speak first. They knew the truth about Agnes, but since there was no solid proof, they feared accusing the pastor's wife without evidence. "Pastor," one of them finally spoke, forcing a smile, "there's nothing wrong. We were just enjoying your preaching, that's all." "Yes, Pastor," another member added quickly, "your sermon was so powerful that we couldn't help but react." Joe listened carefully, but deep down he wasn't convinced. He could sense that something was not right. There was something his church members were not telling him, but without proof, he couldn't press further. With a sigh, he nodded. "All right then, if you say so." The church members left, relieved that they had escaped his questioning. But Joe remained troubled. As he sat alone in his office, he thought deeply. Why did they react that way? What is it about Agnes that I don't know? His mind raced with thoughts, but he had no answers. Yet something inside him told him that soon the truth would come out. And when it did, it would shake his world in ways he never expected. Agnes knelt in her room, praying loudly, her voice shaking with emotion. Sweat dripped from her forehead as she called on God, her hands raised in the air. She knew her husband was home, so she made sure to sound as holy as possible. Joe, on the other hand, sat alone in the living room, lost in deep thought. He kept replaying the events of that Sunday service in his mind. Why had the church members reacted so strangely when he mentioned Agnes as a role model? Why did they exchange glances, whispering among themselves? His heart told him something was wrong, but he couldn't quite figure out what it was. As soon as Agnes finished her dramatic prayer session, Joe decided to confront her. He walked into the bedroom, sat next to her, and held her hand. "Honey," he said gently, "is there something I need to know about you? Something I don't know?" Agnes froze for a moment, her heart skipping a beat. She quickly masked her shock and smiled. "My love, something like what?" "I don't understand." Joe sighed. "I don't know, I'm just asking." Agnes let out a small laugh. "Oh, my husband, you know I am the mouthpiece of God. I pray a lot. Maybe you're talking about the way I was praying just now? That's me. I am a fire woman." Joe stared at her for a while, then nodded slowly. "All right, I believe you." But deep inside he wasn't convinced. Something still didn't feel right. Months later, Ben returned home from the United States. Excited to surprise his parents, he decided not to inform them of his arrival. Instead, he booked a room at a nearby hotel to rest for the night before heading home the next day. That evening, he sat on his hotel bed, reflecting on his journey and the bright future ahead. Then, out of curiosity and impulse, he picked up his phone and called the hotel reception. "Can you get me a woman for the night?" he asked casually. "Of course, sir," the receptionist responded. "She will be there shortly." Ben had no idea that this one decision would change his life forever. A few minutes later, there was a knock on his door. "Who is there?" he asked. A female voice responded, "I am the woman you requested for the night." Ben got up, adjusted his shirt, and opened the door. The moment his eyes met the woman standing before him, he felt his entire world shatter. His jaw dropped, his body stiffened. "Mother, is that you? Am I dreaming?" Agnes stood frozen in the doorway, her body trembling. She had never felt this kind of fear in her life. "Son?" she gasped. "What are you doing here?" Tears welled up in Ben's eyes. His own mother, his role model, the woman who always preached holiness to him, was standing before him in a seductive outfit, ready to sell her body. Unable to face her son's burning gaze, Agnes turned and ran out of the room, her legs weak with shame. She rushed home, locked herself in her bedroom, and cried bitterly. Ben, still in shock, picked up his phone and called his father. "Dad, you need to come home immediately. Something terrible has happened," he said, his voice shaking. Joe sensed the urgency in his son's voice and hurried home. The moment he arrived, Ben stood before him, his face pale. "Dad, you won't believe what my eyes saw today." "What is it, my son?" Joe asked, concerned. Ben took a deep breath and whispered, "I saw Mom, at the hotel, as a prostitute." Joe's heart stopped. "What did you just say?" "Dad, it's the truth," Ben said, tears running down his face. "I booked a room for the night, and when I requested a woman, they sent Mom. I saw her with my own eyes." Joe felt his knees weaken. He sat down, his hands on his head, struggling to process the news. His wife, the woman he trusted, the woman he had defended, was living a double life. Fury boiled inside him. He stood up, stormed into the bedroom, and found Agnes curled up in a corner, crying. "Agnes," he roared, "is this true?" Agnes looked up, her face wet with tears. "Joe, please, forgive me," she sobbed. But Joe was beyond forgiveness. "You are a disgrace to me, to this family, and to the church. Get out of my house, I never want to see you again." Agnes fell to her knees, begging, "Please, Joe, please, I will change, I will—" "Enough," Joe thundered, "you have destroyed your own life, you have no place here anymore." He threw her belongings outside, and with one final look of disgust, he turned his back on her. Agnes, rejected and broken, gathered her things and left the house. She had nowhere else to go, so she returned to her parents' old house in the village. The next Sunday, Joe stood before his congregation with a heavy heart. "My beloved church," he began, "I stand before you today, not as a proud man but as a humbled one. I have come to apologize." The church members were silent, listening intently. "I have always used my wife as an example of righteousness. But today, I tell you all, do not follow her footsteps. She has lived a life of deception, and her actions have led to her downfall." Gasps filled the church. Joe continued, "Let this be a lesson to all. Sin will always be exposed no matter how well it is hidden. A life of immorality leads only to destruction. May we all remain true to God, and may we never live a life of pretense." The congregation nodded in agreement. They had seen the truth unfold before their very eyes. Joe and Ben moved on with their lives, erasing Agnes from their hearts. They found happiness in their faith and in each other, determined to never let the past haunt them. Meanwhile, in the village, Agnes lived in regret. Every day she cried, wishing she could turn back time. But it was too late. She had lost everything: her husband, her son, and her dignity. Moral lessons. 1. No sin remains hidden forever. The truth will always come out, no matter how long it takes. 2. Hypocrisy leads to downfall. Living a double life will only bring shame and destruction. 3. Self-control is key. No matter how much you have, if you are not content, you will destroy yourself. 4. A good name is better than riches. Agnes had a chance to live honorably but threw it all away for temporary pleasure. 5. Always be true to God and yourself. A life built on lies will eventually collapse. Thank you, dear viewers, for watching this powerful story. I hope you have learned valuable lessons from it. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of my upcoming stories. Stay blessed, stay true to yourself, and always walk in the light of God. See you in the next video.